So, I've had a lot of people ask me about my opinion on Deadpool and Wolverine. Not just what I would rate it out of 10, but as a Christian, my opinion on the movie. There's been a lot of discourse about whether or not the movie is blasphemous or Christians walking out on the movie. And there's also been a lot of people criticizing Christians for expressing negative opinions about the film because of the content. The one thing that I need to make very clear is this is an issue that involves a lot more conversation and nuance than a lot of the internet is willing to tolerate. On the internet, we like things black and white. We like things to be, I'm right, you're wrong. Not just that there is a right and wrong answer. People like to be justified in their opinions while also vilifying people that oppose them. So I'm going to break down my thoughts as a Christian on the movie Deadpool and Wolverine. First things first that I need to get out of the way is, should a Christian even be watching this movie? Well, that is up for debate. Should a Christian emulate or desire to be like Deadpool? No. I don't think anyone should try to emulate Deadpool. He is a deeply flawed character, and he definitely does not exemplify the life that a Christian is meant to lead. But does that mean we can't still enjoy the parts of the movie that are fun, that are funny, that make us laugh, that make us cheer? Personally, I don't like Deadpool because of his dirty jokes or his irreverent behavior. I like Deadpool because there is some really great meta commentary on the nature of comic books and film and pop culture. I also like that he is a genuinely kind-hearted character that is always looking out for other people. I tolerate the dirty jokes because of the other parts of the movie that I do enjoy. And this isn't a bizarre way of watching movies. There are a lot of movies that we tolerate things we don't like because of things that we do like. For example, let's take, the Star Wars movies. Regardless of what trilogy you're watching, there are flaws to every Star Wars film, but there are also great parts of every Star Wars film. Let's take the series The Acolyte, to be specific. I really enjoyed The Acolyte, but the first half of season 1 really dragged. Also, having these twin sisters switch which side of the Force they were on in the last couple episodes seemed unnecessary and undercut the emotional arcs of both characters. However, this series had some of the best lightsaber fights that have ever been in Star Wars. I would argue the best lightsaber fights that have ever been in Star Wars. Maybe not with the emotional depth of Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting on Mustafar. Maybe not with the tension of Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn. But the actual fighting, the actual choreography was gorgeous, creative, innovative. The Stranger was also the most compelling villain in Star Wars since Darth Vader. Yes, better than live-action Darth Maul. Animated Darth Maul, much deeper than live-action Darth Maul, so maybe there's some room to say The Stranger isn't as good as him, but The Stranger is one of the greatest villains that Star Wars has ever had. So I tolerate the meandering plot and the weird character development choices that they made for the good parts of it. But what does this have to do with Deadpool? Because in all honesty, we're not just talking about stylistic choices. We're talking about moral choices. At the end of the day, when Christians are talking about the kind of media that we consume and enjoy, it is a conversation about morality. Are we okay viewing a simulation of acts that we as Christians do not condone? And to that, I would like to say, I don't see a lot of Christians talking about the violence in Deadpool, or the violence in a lot of the stuff we watch. What about the drug references? Christians don't tend to freak out about that. But if you have a conviction that you don't want to watch content with sexual humor, sexual content, violence, or drugs, or anything like that, then that's your conviction. And if you stick by it, then I support you, because to not stick by it would be hypocritical. However, if that is not your conviction, then I'm not going to fault you on that either. There are these, I hate using the word gray area, but gray areas that the Bible does talk about. For example, the early church had a debate that came up. Some Christians were okay with eating food that had been sacrificed to idols, and others said that it was wrong, and it caused a lot of division within the early church. When Paul wrote to the church about this, he said, for those who it is okay to eat the food, but do not belittle your brothers who don't partake, and for those who do not eat the food, don't eat the food, for it would be sin for you to do so, but do not judge the brothers that do. There is a place for things to be sin based on conviction. Christianity takes into account culture and heritage and country of origin and how we grew up when it comes to what is right and what is wrong. Not all of morality within the Christian faith is relative, but there are things that are based on our convictions. So this comes down to, where do we draw the line? Do we draw the line at violence? Do we draw the line at sexual jokes? Do we draw the line at strong language? And I think everyone has a different conviction on this, and that's okay. To be honest, we all know that there probably isn't a movie out there that doesn't depict both heroes and villains taking part in actions which us Christians should abstain from. So yes, I enjoy Deadpool. I look past some of the raunchier humor and some of the more adult subject matter to find those things within the movie that I actually can get behind and enjoy. As someone who has their degree in film and makes content analyzing pop culture, movies, comics, video games, I love a character that subverts all of those tropes and talks about them in an honest way with the audience. Deadpool is a character that lets the audience know they are seen, that lets the audience know that your love of these properties is being rewarded by his movies. The various references, cameos, and jokes within the Deadpool films are there to make knowing those characters and following along with those movies worth it. It is a joke that we are all in on, but the characters that we watch on screen are not, and Deadpool is our bridge for those jokes. Deadpool is also a kind character who's always sticking up for those who cannot stick up for themselves. And that is something, as Christians, we want to emulate. We want to give a voice to the voiceless and empower those who cannot be empowered through the love of Christ. Now, is Deadpool a good example of Christian living? Obviously not. But he's also not a good example of secular living. Most people would agree that Deadpool's behavior is not acceptable by any means. He is a commentary on superiority theory. There are three main branches of comedy. There is relief theory, incongruity theory, and superiority theory. Incongruity theory are things like a dog wearing aviator goggles. It's funny because dogs don't wear aviator goggles. It's that more absurdist humor. It's funny because the things don't go together. Relief theory is like, knock knock, who's there? Banana. Knock knock, who's there? Banana. Knock knock, who's there? Orange. Orange, you glad I didn't say banana? Comedy that is like that classic setup, confirmation, breaking of the trend. It is building tension and relieving that tension through a joke. And finally, superiority theory. It is us laughing at the character, not with the character. The quintessential example of superiority theory is Michael Scott. Michael Scott, the character from The Office, is someone that we laugh at, not with. Now, while Deadpool does have jokes that would actually fit into all three of these categories, we often are laughing at him. Which brings me to the joke that has probably caused the most division and the most uproar amongst Christians. And that would be Deadpool calling himself Marvel Jesus. As a Christian, I don't like when my Lord and Savior is made fun of. I don't like when he is mocked. However, I do not believe that that is what is happening in Deadpool and Wolverine. Some Christians have said that it is blasphemy, but it is actually Deadpool saying something so absurd that we all are laughing at him. It is also a commentary on the messianic trope. Whenever a hero sacrifices themselves to save the world and then comes back by the end of the movie, we don't bat an eye. And that is because it is all subtext. In cinema, and especially superhero movies, characters take on messianic roles. Someone with the power to do what humanity can't, to sacrifice themselves, save the world, and return. It is a trope we have all seen and we have all talked about. As a Christian, I personally believe that this is the human longing for redemption, the understanding that we don't have the power to save ourselves from ourselves, and we need someone to do it for us. Which is what Christ did on the cross. Redemption is written on our hearts. And so many movies use their subtext to play on that desire for redemption. But Deadpool is not about subtext. Deadpool is blunt. Warning, spoilers for Deadpool here, but I gotta make my point. Deadpool is subverting that subtext by straight up saying, I'm Marvel Jesus. And by the end of the movie, he will make a self-sacrificial play to save the multiverse. And then he returns by the end of the movie. It is the same messianic structure we have seen played out in dozens, if not hundreds, of movies. Deadpool calls himself the Marvel Jesus multiple times, including right before he makes the sacrifice play, where he says, I'm the Marvel Jesus. Or maybe I'm Spock. It's hard to tell, because Spock is also an example of one of those messianic figures in Wrath of Khan. So this joke is twofold. One, to laugh at Deadpool that he would have the audacity to call himself Marvel Jesus, but also the meta-commentary of the messianic trope within superhero movies. So, do I think that that running joke in Deadpool and Wolverine is blasphemy? No. I think it is a meta-commentary on superhero films in general and Deadpool's own arrogance. Do I think Christians should go see this movie? That's up to you. You have to determine whether or not you have a conviction about that. I cannot make that decision for you. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I am some moral authority. I am a flawed human being. All I can do is do my best to be like Christ in this life, as every Christian is called to be. So to my fellow Christians out there, make that decision for yourself. Give it real thought on whether or not it is going to provoke your conscience to go see that movie. And to my non-Christians out there, cut us some slack. There's some obnoxious people out there. There's obnoxious Christians, there's obnoxious non-Christians. But let's try to have real conversation, rather than just, look at these idiot Christians over here, aren't they foolish? Sorry this video was a long one, but I had to be nuanced in my conversation. I couldn't just be black and white.